Welcome to the Customer Experience 404, episode number 3. This episode is with David McQuillen, the executive mastermind behind the award-winning Frank of OCBC, who's also the chief suffering officer of the Sufferfest, who believes that creating the customer experience is the way to business success. Welcome to the CX404 zone. I'm Andrew Mayer of Service Please, aka at ServicePlease20 over on Twitter, where you can discuss with me about everything digital customer experience. This is the show where we talk to people and companies working on improving the customer experience, where we bring them out from behind the curtains and give them a chance to share with their secret hot sauce with us, their recipes to success. Our interview partner today is David McQuillen of the Sufferfest, who thinks that most customers or most companies have neglected quality of design across all their channels and products as a key driver to the customer experience, and that a correctly designed customer experience only needs customer service when things go horribly wrong. And as Lanyap today, we're going to talk about our recent finding. This show was recorded on Wednesday, the 20th of February, 2013. Thank you for taking your time out today and joining us on the Customer Experience 404. So welcome, David. David, welcome to the CX404 zone.
Thanks, Andrew. Great to be here, man.
And I have to, full disclosure, of course, here, I've been a longtime fan, or actually better, a customer of the Sufferfest, which he represents here since about 2009. He'll probably might point some finger at me saying I haven't been a true Sufferfester for the last 18 months or so, and that onus is on me, and probably after this interview I'm going to go find a bike and go ride somewhere. But before we go into more detail, maybe you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe some things of what's motivated you, what's brought you into the customer experience world, and to share with our listeners.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, just long story short, I guess. I've been working in customer experience for about 17, 18 years or so. And it all started when I was in strategy consulting at a business school. And my first client engagement, I told my partner that, hey, I'll work in any industry except for financial services. And the next day they put me on a plane to Merrill Lynch. And I spent the rest of my career, really, up until recently, in financial services. But I realized pretty quickly that banks were putting together really powerful strategies, but where they were falling down was how they interacted with their customers. And they weren't really thinking about those customer touch points to make sure that these great strategic intents actually manifested themselves in how the customer experienced the company. So I guess, probably after about 18 months of noticing that, I started working in customer experience for a .com, and then was head of customer experience for Credit Suisse for about 10 years. And then moved to OCBC Bank in Singapore, where I was head of customer experience division there for the past 3 years. And I left that recently to run my own company, which is the Sufferfest, which makes cycling training videos and cycling clothing, and has a pretty engaged nation of Sufferlandrians around the world.
Engaged is right. There's some really crazy ones, and I'll put it in the show notes. All these things we're talking about here. For if there's anyone who actually listened to the CX404 podcast who's interested in cycling, and hopefully there are, or they just want to see what those engaged followers actually do. There's some great things to follow there. But you've worked both in Europe and Asia, particularly in the financial sector here, and we can maybe zoom in on that a little bit, focused on the customer experience. Having seen the different cultures and the sides of this here, what are some of the big challenges that you see in the CX space? From a customer, what differences? It's one thing I like to bring out in my CX404 is this is not being an American here. I'm living in Europe for a long time. I'm trying to put in a big international view on all these things and bring in experiences here. So you've seen the European, you've seen the Asian. Now you've moved into Australia here. What have you learned across the thing, or is it all pretty much the same?
Well, I'd say in terms of customers, Andrew, what I've found is that it's pretty much all the same, man. You might have some differences in how people perceive color or tone of voice and language, or ways of expressing politeness or formality. But in general, what people want and or more importantly, what people need is pretty much the same around the world. And when I was working for Credit Suisse, I remember people saying, well, when you come to Hong Kong, it's going to be different. You're going to find out things different than what the Swiss want. And when you go to Singapore, it'll be different. When you go to New York, it's going to be different. And, we did hundreds and hundreds of interviews with private banking clients around the world. And I would say that the needs are 95% the same.
Okay.
Where I find the biggest difference, however, is culturally within companies and how companies are approaching customers. And I would say that Europe is probably more advanced in terms of things like market research and there's some disciplines and practices around how do you understand customers, how do you work on customer service or process improvement. Six Sigma is pretty well developed across the U.S. and in Europe. However, even though Asia is further behind Europe and the U.S. in these disciplines, I would say that they are gaining rapidly. Their appetite for knowledge around how do you create great customer experiences, how do we understand our customers better, how do we segment our customers, how do we serve them better, is phenomenal. And they just can't get enough. And I think it won't be long before they overtake as thought leaders, if not practitioners, their European and American colleagues.
So you think they are they able to show a bit more flexibility and movement and accepting and changing, making these changes here? Because what I've seen with a lot of customers here in Europe, particularly in the bigger brands, the more traditional ones, it's slow and it's hard and it takes a long time. And startups and smaller, niche companies, sure, that's an exception. But the bigger ones, do you think the Asian ones will adopt more quickly?
Well, I can only speak from my own experience and from what I've learned from my colleagues in other businesses. But I would say that if I was launching a customer experience project in Switzerland, I would put the idea forward, and the first answer would be no, and then I would take that as a maybe. And I would then spend the next 6 months working the politics to try and get it to yes. That was just how it was done. When I moved to Singapore, I kind of expected the same thing. I was still in a big bank. And I put my first idea forward, and everyone looked at it and go, well, what took you so long? Why aren't we doing this yet? And so keeping up with, it took me a while to get used to the change of pace. A good idea, at least at my bank at OCBC, a good idea was jumped on, and people wanted it implemented as fast as possible.
So why is it so hard then for the traditional companies, and maybe not just the European or wherever it might be, why is it so hard for these traditional, more, the brick and mortar companies who are moving, who are being forced to or have to move into interacting with customers on the internet through whatever media it might be there? Why can't they keep up with them? Why are they having a hard time, saying we've got to engage them? We have to address the internet shopping, web chat, social media, whatever it may be here.
Well, I guess first I would say customers aren't hard to keep up with. They're not moving as fast as everyone thinks they are. I'd say they're fairly easy to keep up with if you bother to pay attention to what they're saying, listen to it, and act on it. And that's where the problem is. And I think what keeps companies from keeping up with their customers, they're just too consumed by two things. One is their competitors. All their attention, you look at all their monitoring, it's all on what did the bank across the street do? What are they doing? What did they launch? Is it any good? Someone go and mystery shop their branch. To me, is a complete distraction. Companies should be investing their time in understanding their customer needs and meeting those needs better than they ever thought possible. And if you do that, competition will be taken care of. And the second is just internal distractions in politics and role playing, and that's probably those issues are exaggerated when a company doesn't have any kind of clear capability focused on customers. Now, in most banks, you'll have maybe a market research function that's sitting within marketing. So therefore, the market research function basically becomes a slave to how do we market to customers? And that research is never used to figure out how do we create new products for customers? How do we serve customers better? How do we improve the business? How do we keep track of trends? And it's just, hey, what ad or what marketing program are we going to do? Your process improvement stuff tends to sit in operations, so it's going to be purely cost cutting type stuff. So at OCBC, one of the things that we had, and I have to thank our CEO at the time, who allowed us to create this capability, is that we truly had a customer centric capability at OCBC that included market research, experience design, and then a training function so we could teach the rest of the business how to focus on their customers and how to design better experiences. It now has all of the analytics, so all of the tracking of customer behavior, and also has customer service in the contact center. So all of your core customer functions are in one division now within this bank, and that's unprecedented in other banks. And I think until and not just banks, but until companies realize that these functions work best together and can be incredibly powerful, it's really going to keep them from keeping up with their customers.
So it's when I hear that, it's breaking down the silos of the way companies are structured typically or traditionally today, right?
Well, it's not just breaking down the silos, but moving some parts together that logically belong together but rarely are. If you think about a market research team and an experience design team, most financial services companies don't even have a experience design team. But having research and design right next to each other is incredibly powerful. Now you bring customer service alongside that. You bring a training function alongside it that helps the rest of the business understand how to use research and how to do design, to do great experience design. This is huge, and we had fantastic success at OCBC. We, just as one example, we developed a new investment product based on in-depth customer research, a lot of ethnographic stuff. We did design prototypes of a new product, all the new materials around it, and when this product launched, we had a sales increase in the triple digits above what they normally got for a similar product.
So, go ahead.
That's just one story of many in which we had triple-digit improvements based on understanding customers, prototyping solutions to meet their needs, and then bringing that to market.
So how was that structured within the bank there? So how you're talking about different functional organizations, which I typically meet in companies which have their own leaders and their own agendas and their own measures and everything else that belongs to it there. How was that structured within the bank there?
Well, I was the head of customer experience, and I reported directly to the CEO, and I was part of the executive management team of the bank. So this automatically gives customer experience, I think, an unprecedented seat at the table and an ability to influence not just customer experience, but the overall strategy of the bank. Then within the team, we had, like I said, we had market research is one department. We had experience design as another department. We had training as another. Then customer analytics, customer service, and the contact center.
Mm-hmm. So when you think about it now in the context or where CX404 is coming from, if we're looking at all these digital interactions, so we're not talking so much about branches and customers and what I title the analog exchanges, where somebody's standing across the counter or at the cashier from your store there. Well, customers today are, you might say they're not moving so quickly. They are addressing companies in a lot of diverse channels. So they might pick up the phone in the morning, they send you an email in the afternoon, and if you haven't responded or given them the right answer they're looking for, by the evening they're on your Facebook page tweeting something maybe less than pleasant about your company there. How do companies address that, or do they have to? Have you got any experiences or any insights, and maybe not from the bank, or if not, perhaps from your own business there?
Well, I guess now I would talk about my role in the Sufferfest, and the Sufferfest is an entirely online business, and we sell digital goods, right? We sell downloadable videos. All of our customers are around the world. In any given month, we're selling videos in 45 countries. So we've got, different cultures, different ages, different languages, everybody under the sun, really. As long as they ride a bike, they might be interested in our stuff. Um, you know, I, I've learned a lot by not just being an internal consultant like in a bank for customer experience, but with the Sufferfest, I'm on the front line. I'm the guy who's answering the emails and doing the social media and creating the products and incorporating feedback. Uh, I'd say probably the most important thing to doing it well is being, well, how do I put this? Being an honest, approachable, likable company that does the right thing. Because this creates a lot of goodwill among your customers. And they'll be more forgiving of you when you do eventually screw up, because you will screw up. I'll have situations where, we didn't mail out a package or a set of clothing, or someone didn't get one of their videos downloaded correctly. If we didn't have a good reputation, folks would be pretty quick to start really complaining and getting angry. But I think they see through our social media that we're trying our best. We're working as hard as we can. We're really determined to deliver a great customer experience. So in those times where we do mess up, they're a little bit more forgiving, and we make it right as quickly as possible.
So being honest and true is perhaps one of the key values here in the way you communicate and exchange with your customers, no matter what media they might be choosing, could help save the relationship when it goes wrong.
Well, being human too, and with the Sufferfest, we try to be likable, and share, and we're really engaged. If I see companies where they set up Facebook pages or Twitter accounts, and they just tweet post, and their customers will respond, but they never put anything back. They never get a conversation going. And at the Sufferfest, if you post on our Facebook page, we will answer you. We will say something. Even if it's as simple as "Hey, thanks, welcome to Sufferlandria," or it could be something a couple paragraphs long. But our view is, look, if you've taken the time to make the effort to reach out to us, then we owe it to you to do the same back. And if you send us an email that says, "Hey, just wanted you to know, really like your videos," I don't ignore that. I'll write back, and even if it's as simple as just a smiley face, or perhaps it's a bit longer, you owe it to close that loop. You shouldn't let the customer have the loop open. You know what I mean?
Right. So, you're humanizing the brand is what a lot of people like to talk about, and that's from a smaller business or your own business is something that it's your personal energy and endeavor to make it happen there. Getting larger brands to recognize that and then to address it and see how they can actually meet that challenge there. It's not impossible. We've seen some really good examples out there across the world from companies doing that. But it's I think what you said is just getting the structures in place within the companies so that they can react to it. Having a Facebook page which might look very human, and they respond and they sign their tweets with their names or something to make it sound like you're talking actually to a real person, even though there is a brand behind it. But what we typically see where it goes wrong is when a real question comes into that person that they can't handle because they don't have the structure and process behind them in place to actually find the answer, and they refer them to the 800 number or something. And that's where it falls apart. That's you've given us some really great inputs here today, and I think we could actually go on a whole lot longer here with other questions. I'd like to jump to the next section, which is what I call the CX404 shout-outs, where if you've got any, where we like to have 2 or 3 people that you might like to highlight and give some exposure to who have influenced you in the customer experience space, people you've learned from or you've seen do really good work. That don't get the kudos and the visibility perhaps there. Have you got any prepared for us today?
Well, I think where I have to give a shout out is to my former team at OCBC, which is headed up by Anthony Johnson and Bojan Blecic and Chin Mun Hong, who guys who are just doing amazing work, and they're probably not really seen outside Asia or Singapore, but I think these guys are driving some of the most advanced work in customer experience that really anyone is doing. It's across all channels. It's based on deep customer insight. It's based on deep customer tracking, not just customer satisfaction, but also financial performance metrics. Really incredible stuff. And they're doing fantastic work. That's who I'd give my shout out to.
Wow. Well, we'll make sure we get their names in the show notes here, and any references to them, so that you've given quite a whopping shout out to them. Hopefully they'll get a little bit of visibility outside of the region they're in there today. Listen, David, I really appreciate you for joining us on the CX404 today. Can you tell folks how they can find out more about you and the Sufferlandria?
Yeah, well, they can check out the Sufferfest.com, which is where we're promoting the Sufferlandrian national ethos of suffering on your bike. And you can see us on Facebook at facebook.com/thesufferfest. And if you want to connect with me personally, you can find me on LinkedIn at David McQuillen.
Hey, thank you. Now we've gone from corporate banking from Europe, North America, and Asia into Sufferlandria. I'm sure I've confused a couple of my listeners now. I appreciate you for joining us today, and perhaps we'll bring you back on the show and hear how things are going on with the Sufferfest. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, man.
And now for that section where we talk about that little bit of lagniappe. An article came across my desk today, or across this week, from One to One Media, and I'll put the link to the article in the show notes here, about Perry Ellis, the clothing manufacturer, in their stores. And the article is titled How Perry Ellis Puts a 360-degree Spin on the Customer Experience. Now, while this is not necessarily a digital example here of online customer experience and customer support, it was interesting in how they're trying to enable their sales associates within the stores to have access to more than just what one can see within the store on the shelf. So stocking, pricing, delivery, being able to order things. They seem to have set up their sales associates in a number of their stores. I believe it's probably mostly in North America, with iPads and some special applications, I guess, here, so that they can have access to everything that the company knows about their products and what they're bringing to the market here, so that the customer can get every bit of information so that it's at the sales associate's fingertips. This is quite interesting. It also includes a point of sale device. So if any of you have been into an Apple store and seen the sales agents being able to take your credit card or your sales details right there on the floor and check you out without having to go to a counter, it looks like this is happening now in a clothing retailer. This is probably the first time I've actually read this one. So Perry Ellis putting a 360-degree spin on the customer experience with their new point of sales devices here. So a little bit of lagniappe here. Check out the show notes for the link to the page there. Maybe it's something interesting for you. Thank you for spending your lunchtime today with Customer Experience 404. You can find out more about the Customer Experience 404 at the website www.serviceplease.de. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher. You can as well sign up for our newsletter to never miss a show. If you have any comments or suggestions for the show, please email us at andrew@serviceplease.de. Or you can reach me anytime at serviceplease20 over on Twitter. Thank you.